Was that more? I guess you've always had this thing that you wanted to be on the national platform that you're on now, but for you to leave your hometown, I mean, people, they die to be able to do radio in their own city where they know the most and have the most connection.
I say this to young people I talk to a lot, and it's the best. There's two pieces of advice that I give young people no matter the field. One is the internet is in pen, not pencil, so careful what pictures, what you write, anything. But the other one is the best advantage anyone can ever have professionally is knowing where they're trying to get to, knowing what the goal is. And for me, the goal was, and always had been, at one point in time, even if it's incredibly fleeting, being America's preeminent sports talk personality. And you're right, I didn't want to leave Kansas City. I was engaged. I was thinking about buying a house. They were going to eventually, even though they slow pedaled it, offer me what I thought was more money than I could ever need at 27. Not that, by the way, it was, keep in mind what my salary tier had been. So it seemed like a lot of money because it was, oh my God, my salary's going to start with a 1, and I never could have imagined that. And but if I stayed in Kansas City then, I believed I would stay in Kansas City forever. And I was a little afraid I'd become what I had mocked. The guys across the street who were entrenched, who were there forever, who stopped really fully trying, and live. It would have been, I mean, it's the road not traveled. It's an interesting what if. I think I could have worked in Kansas City for 30 years. I think I could have become, I don't want to sound soaked in ego, but I think I could have become one of the city's most prominent people other than the pro athletes. Not a lot of like actual famous people in Kansas City. Like I think the most famous non-pro athlete in the city might be the weatherman Brian Busby. Like, you know what I mean? That's my hometown. I'm not mocking it. I love the place. And so, but if I stayed, I thought I'd stay forever. And I'd never set foot in Texas. But I knew if I really wanted to get to where I said I wanted to get to, I had to leave. And so you can get to a national show from Houston. You really can't from Kansas City. And so I took the leap.
Okay, so at that time, you're engaged to Danielle, who had 2 kids from before you came along, and you're moving, mixed-race couple, to Houston, Texas. Not that Kansas City is the most liberal, city in America, but that's a big-time move. And now you're living in Sugar Land, Texas, which I was fortunate enough myself to stay with Nick for about a month living in his place. I was a great roommate. But that's a different land, and I experienced it myself, and I heard things down there, and there's good people everywhere. I don't want to completely, but it's different down there. That had to have been an adjustment.
Yeah, listen, there is no region of the country that has a monopoly on idiocy or hate or isms, and there's no place in the country that is free of it. But Texas is different for a lot of reasons. The gun culture there is different. The almost tribalism based on are you a Texan or not is different. And I really, really liked Houston. I did not love Texas. And so, but it was professionally what I had to do. I loved my co-host there, John Lopez. I was doing morning drive in the number 6 market in the country. And it also gave me some opportunities to do a little television. I started doing a national radio show on Sundays, and professionally it was exactly what I needed to do, and thankfully my wife, who's always been the best partner anyone could imagine, did not bat an eye when, before I even had interviewed, she said, we're moving to Houston, I already know it, and we were getting married, but we weren't married yet, I hadn't adopted the kids yet, and we packed up our lives and moved to Houston.
If you could have just stayed in Kansas City and gotten to where you're at right now, would you have gone that route?
If I could have replaced the 4 years in Houston with 4 years in Kansas City and had the exact same career, yeah, I would have done that, but that doesn't exist. I would have also become Moses Malone, as I said at the beginning, but that doesn't exist either. Like, I have no professional regrets. But I love Kansas City and miss it enough that I never go back. And I mean that sincerely. Like, I left there in 2012 after living there my entire life except for college, and I did not come back until 2014 for 2 games of the Royals playoff run. And then I went back for Danny Parkin's wedding, and I went back for one other thing. But I left Kansas City in June of 2012, and I've been back for a total of 6 days. And my dad still lives there. But that place will always have a part of my heart, and I love that city, but I had to leave in order to be where I am. And where I am, by the way, is not the end of the road, because I don't know if you've checked, but I'm not America's most prominent sports personality, so I have a long way still to go, but at least it's on the board that it happens.
Okay, let's go from Houston to Fox Sports. And I believe you were in, correct me if I'm wrong here, you were in negotiations with both ESPN and Fox, and you ended up at Fox.
Yeah, I got some really good advice from a guy named Scott Geiger, who goes by Laszlo in Kansas City, and from my wife about why Fox was the better opportunity, even though obviously ESPN was certainly at the time the bigger brand and the bigger name. And I moved to L.A. Wife and kids stayed in Houston for a year because our youngest son was finishing high school, attempting to get a basketball scholarship that he didn't quite pull off. And I moved. I had an offer from ESPN based in L.A., and I turned that down, took the Fox offer, and after 9 months of me filling in for Colin Cowherd and doing other things, filling in on other people's shows, guesting on other people's shows, they approached me about moving to New York, getting with Chris Carter, and fronting the television show that I do now, and that obviously was a game changer for me professionally, and hopefully a bit of a game changer for the network as well, because we had just hired Skip. Colin was already doing Colin's thing. Jason's show was already up and running, and now we were going to be able to have a morning show to lead off the day, and we're approaching the 2-year anniversary of that. As I said, the day after Labor Day is the 2-year anniversary of that.
Okay, so 2 years in, I think the fact that you just had Enes Kanter in studio, and he brought you a Celtics jersey. You showed me the video last night. So here's a professional athlete who's watching the show and wanted to come on and be a part of it. So I would assume, like, when you see stuff like that going on, that you feel like you're the footprint is happening. You're being known by a ton of people. I know you've pissed off some athletes too. So I'm assuming you're thrilled with how things are right now.
Yeah, I don't really operate in that space mentally. I am very grateful and I'm very blessed, and there are times that during the TV show that I still, like, when I'm not talking but I'm watching Chris, where I kind of have a moment where I'm like, holy bleep, this is your life. Like, you're just sitting across the table debating sports with Chris freaking Carter. And, Enes Kanter yesterday, rub my head to check and see if my hair was real. Those are really cool things. And I do a radio show now as well on Sirius where I follow up Mad Dog Russo. And Colin Cowherd, who was my professional idol, I talk to him once a week off the air. And not only still go on a show on the air, but off the air because he's one of my close friends. So in that regard, I've worked very, very hard, but I also have had every good bounce that I could have gotten, I've gotten. And that dates back to the time I was out in high school where I could have ruined my whole life, and I just got lucky a bunch of times consecutively. And so I'm very happy, but I am far from content, and I have not yet come close to achieving my ultimate goal. And by the way, while the show is doing well, I'm not even on the #1 morning sports show. So I've got a ways to go. The only thing I've ever beaten the likes of Colin and Skip and Stephen A. in is a poll for America's most annoying sports broadcaster, whereas a 16 seed, I won it against that stacked Final Four. But in all the other ways, I got a ways to go.
Well, it's interesting. In the whole I was the most annoying 16, whatever, that you win it, you celebrated that on the show. There's a certain comfort that you have in not being necessarily well liked, but you also, I mean, I've seen you walk in Kansas City where you want to be recognized. You love people. You love talking to people. You know what I'm saying?
Listen, I'd prefer to be loved, but the second best thing to be is hated. I mean, that's just the truth. It's tough to cut through, and the worst thing someone could say about me is I don't care. So I don't go out of my way to be hated, and again, I don't think I say many hateable things. There are certain fan bases I get. Eagles fans are still not over the fact that I canceled their Super Bowl chances when Wentz got hurt. Celtics fans will never like me, things like that. But I don't think I'm, I have much. I don't think I have many. There's not many things I do that I think should be hateable. Maybe it's just my face. Maybe the hair will help. But Chris Russo said this once, and he's right. The goal of the job of a talk show host is to make people emote. You'd prefer that emotion be positive, but if it's negative, that's fine too. As long as you feel something, as long as people think I'm authentic. And I think people know I'm authentic, and I think they feel something. And I think people are starting to like me a little bit more. At least that's what I tell myself.
Wrapping up with LeBron. When's he coming on the show?
Man's busy. Now that he's already basically universally accepted by people who know things as the greatest basketball player ever, he's trying to become the greatest athlete ever. So that's gonna take some time. Even I think maybe he hasn't yet got to the peak of that mountain. But the real question is that more and more educated people are becoming. In 15, 20 years, are people going to consider Jordan the second greatest, or are people going to finally put the respect on Kareem's name and put Jordan maybe third place? That's really what I want to know.
So this is the point in the podcast where I get very upset and say, who would you rather give the ball to if you needed a bucket in the fourth quarter?
We know the answer to those questions. The facts don't lie, but your childhood nostalgia will always prevent you from seeing the truth. We can do this another time, Mark. I got to go.
Nick literally just walked out of the studio. Nicky, good to see you, buddy.
See ya.
So that was my conversation with Nick Wright. Always great to talk to Nicky. I was in New York for the U.S. Open, my favorite sporting event to go to, watch tennis for 12 hours. I always go the first couple of days because all the outer courts are going, and you can literally sit in the first row, and you're seeing top 15, top 20 players in the world right in front of you, and it's just awesome. And I literally never want to leave at the end of the day. And then when I'm taking the plane home, I'm basically weeping on my way back because it's just a little siesta at the end of August where I don't think about anything other than just enjoying myself and watching tennis. But my favorite match from this year's U.S. Open was one I wasn't at, and it actually had nothing to do with the play on the court. Coco Gauff, 15 years old, amazing story, loses to Naomi Osaka, the number one seed, 6-3, 6-0. And now they're actually both out of the tournament because Osaka just lost as well. And Coco's distraught after she loses, and maybe you've seen the video. Naomi walks over to Coco. Hey, will you come do the on-court interview with me? The winner always does an on-court interview. The crowd doesn't really listen. And then he hits 3 balls into the stands after the interview. Coco says, no, I'm going to cry. And Naomi says, hey, better to cry out here, get it out, than go in the shower and cry all by yourself. Clearly something that Naomi has done and can relate to. So Coco, give her credit, says yes and does the interview and is all class. But my favorite moment is when Naomi looks at Coco's parents and starts sharing about how when she was coming up, they were training at the same place. And I'm imagining Naomi, Japanese, female, not like every other female you see on the tour. She probably felt like a bit of an underdog. And here's Coco and her parents in a pretty damn wealthy sport. African American coming on up, something you don't necessarily see every day. And the way I heard it,